Are we all Gretchens waiting for the downfall of Regina? Taylor once turned shame into spectacle. Now spectacle seems to be all that's left. I'm Kristina Wiltsee. I'm a life alchemist, a writer, and the creator of the Inner Villain Integration System, a framework that maps out 9 archetypal villains, their wounded children, successful antagonists, covert forms, heroes, and legends. It's kind of like a way of understanding shadow work, the ways our hidden parts, shame, betrayal, grief, attention-seeking, perfectionism shape us, and how we can transform them into power and wisdom. What I want to show you today is how Taylor Swift's career can be seen as a series of villain arcs. She has built entire eras embodying these shadows and often flipped them into her triumph. But in her latest work, she seems to be reaching for arcs and not quite hitting the mark, or as some people say. And for all you Swifties out there, I'm not getting on the bandwagon, just giving a different approach. Early country Taylor, we can say, followed the Obedient Critic. The Obedient Critic is all about hierarchy and staying and being the good girl. Her debut, Fearless, Speak Now, all are wide-eyed guitar strumming and longing. The songs live inside the Obedient Critic's wounded child, craving belonging, wanting to get it right, showing shame and innocence in equal measure, and ultimately she performed purity and let her critics define her sense of self. Then comes her vain controller, or her mean girl era, which is all about how do you influence and how do you gain resources? In Red in 1989, we see the vain controller. The successful antagonist of that is the influencer. Spectacle and image are really important. This is Taylor stepping into her full spectacle. The tabloids made her breakups into headlines and she turned them into art. Blank Space is the perfect villain card, both mockery and performance of betrayal. Here she is the vain controller's successful antagonist, which is the influencer, concerned with appearance, controlling her image, and harnessing betrayal into power. This is peak villainy that is turned into pop mastery. Then we have a fall from grace, just like what happened to Regina in Mean Girls. Reputation was a finishing of her Obedient Critic arc to become the hero. She had to effectively move through the arc of the Obedient Critic in order to become the Anarchist. Taylor had to go back to the Obedient Critic hero in order to be able to move through the rest of her arcs. In Reputation, she becomes the hero of the Obedient Critic arc in becoming the Anarchist. She burned it all down. She embraced the snake and told us, "Look at what you made me do." Taylor was embodying the Anarchist. This hero in the Obedient Critic arc, she smashed hierarchy and expectation. And for a moment, she was totally unbound. Then we have Lover, in which she's actually unveiling herself. So she's going back to the vain controller arc and saying, I want to control the narrative of how I look and how I create and what my creative process is. So I'm going to unveil myself, which is coming into the hero of the vain controller arc. It's beautiful. So she may be flip-flocking between the vain controller and the Obedient Critic. She's going back and forth between the two, but it works. And then we have the pandemic. And Folklore and Evermore are 2 perfect examples of the invisible destroyer, or what I like to call the arc of the nothing, because almost all of us were there. We wanted to engage with the world, but couldn't, so we went into our interior creative spaces. And in that retreat, we get cottagecore, fictional characters, disappearing into world building. This was the invisible destroyer in its legend form, the architect. It is by far her closest rush with the legend of this architect, creating whole worlds out of imagination. And then the fumble starts to begin. She's already done the Obedient Critic, the vain controller, the invisible destroyer. So where's she gonna go next? So we have next Midnights, which honestly is a bit of a fractured villain. It is a collage where we see everything kind of start to splinter. Instead of choosing a single arc, it's stitched together fragments. We have one part righteous bully, which is vigilante shit, karma, dripping with moral superiority and a touch of vengeance while performing control. Then we have some more vain controller in the anti-hero song. Then we have some more Obedient Critic, you're on your own, shame, self-shame, the inner critic whispering to her. It's why the album feels restless. It's not just one arc, but 3 villains fighting for control. Midnights could have been different if it had fully chosen to be the righteous bully. But then we see her choose to be fully in the righteous bully with the Torture Poets department. And that's all good. She is the righteous bully in the diss tracks, The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, Thank You, Amy, lashing out from moral superiority yet again. We also see a little bit of Divisive Immortal, which is the 6 in the Enneagram, in the heartbreak songs, grievance and justice, broken hearts, shame, reframed as betrayal. It sits in grief and judgment without actually reaching for transformation. Honestly, it's why it feels a little exhausting and why almost everybody says that you could have probably gotten rid of half the tracks. It's antagonist energy without a movement to the hero. So then we have the latest, The Life of a Showgirl. And honestly, I feel bad because this is actually a totally brand new arc and she's trying to fully engage with it, but it is a totally brand new arc. We've never seen it before. It is the Hungry Shapeshifter, what I also call the Loki. And in many ways, it's probably the undercurrent of the work that she's been doing the whole time, because the Hungry Shapeshifter is all about attention seeking and trying to choose different identities and not knowing which one you want to go into. So when you go through lots of arcs, Hungry Shapeshifter is usually the underlying feeling that you have with it. The Hungry Shapeshifter is in the universe of presence. It is about attention-seeking, maximalist, craving validation through speculation, and that's when it's like in its worst form. But here's the problem. No one really likes the Hungry Shapeshifter. By definition, it is tone deaf because it is about commanding attention for its own sake in a world that is already drowning in noise and very, very bad news. Yes, it's great that Taylor's going through a sexual revolution, but doing so while moving away from the arcs she has mastered. The Obedient Critic and the Vain Controller makes it fall flat. Those were arcs that she occupied with precision. The Hungry Shapeshifter, by contrast, feels hollow. It can't land because our time doesn't need more attention seeking. And so there's a missed arc. Taylor's brilliance has always been about choosing an arc and leaning all the way into it, and then moving through it. The Anarchist and Reputation worked because she owned it. The Vain Controller worked because she had embodied it. But Midnight's and Showgirl all share one problem. They hesitate. They reach for too many villains at once, or they choose one that can't serve the cultural moment. What would resonate now? The surrender to the righteous bully, the healer of the divisive immortal, even the architect of the invisible destroyer. All of them could show that letting go, building new worlds, and collective transformation are actually more important than being stuck in grievance or spectacle or the desire for attention. Taylor Swift has been one of the greatest narrators of shadow work in recent years, and I think that's entirely intentional. But shadow work requires integration. Without that, we're left watching a villain stuck in the loop of their own arc, repeating instead of transforming. And that's why the latest eras don't seem to land. Showgirl might give her new space to go into a new arc, but ultimately, right now it's unfamiliar. I guess time will tell.